I promised a cold open question.
You did.
I do. Okay.
You did.
And the cold open question is simply, do you know how I can, in one leap, bring up Snowpiercer?
No, I do not. But I will be somehow not shocked and impressed at the same time if you do.
Well, it's easy. The woman that plays the FBI agent, Emmy Raver Lampman, is Daveed Diggs' partner.
Look at that.
So there we go. One leap. Wow. Like, boom, we're at Snowpiercer.
It's not even 12 degrees of Snowpiercer.
Yeah, it's just one.
Yes.
And that will be my goal for every time we talk about a movie is how many leaps. And the question is like how many leaps. I'm going to go to the TBS show because it's a little bit more obscure. And if we have to jump through the movie, we will.
Was it TBS or TNT?
TBS.
And TBS?
TBS.
Oh, okay.
Hello, everybody. WildWeiler here, and I am sitting down with my friend, Man Entrenched, to talk about the movie, The Beekeeper.
Hi. Hello.
So, this is the first of any type of really audio-only production I've done here, so bear with us, but best we're gonna do is try to figure out what the hell this movie is.
Yes, I'm really glad that you have dragged me, not even kicking and screaming out of retirement. Just very, very glad to, because I love talking about this particular kind of movie. The good bad good.
I think this is bad.
It might be bad, but it was still enjoyable for me to watch because I got to come and talk to you about it.
This one is bad, but in a way that is different than I think a lot of other bads, because I didn't feel embarrassed watching it.
No.
I just felt like, why did you do this? Why, know, there are so many times where like all they had to do was turn right and they turned left instead.
Sure, yeah. Like, actually, yeah, I was talking to one of our Dungeons and Dragons friends about the fact that we were going to have a conversation about this and a couple of things I was going to bring up. Definitely a few pretty pretty hard left turns, and not a subversion of expectation that leaves you feeling satisfied. It's just like you zigged instead of zagging, I guess.
I would say just up top that a lot of the subversions of expectation are more like you didn't have the budget to subvert this correctly.
Sure.
So you just kind of
noped it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So let's start at the top. The Beekeeper.
Yes.
Fundamentally, Jason Statham plays a beekeeper.
Yeah, I was about to say it is a metaphor and also the most on the nose part of the movie.
It's weird because we'll get into the metaphor because they explained it to us, the audience, about 3 times.
At least.
So he plays a beekeeper, and what we learn is this is sort of a Jason Statham classic where he used to be an assassin, codename also the Beekeeper, and I guess he just got way too into the role or whatever.
Right,
but
yeah.
The movie opens with a beekeeper dealing with a wasp's nest. First pedantic annoyance.
Yes.
Exterminators deal with wasps, not beekeepers.
Oh, right.
Yes. like that's not what you do. Call an exterminator.
I guess if devil's advocate, it was maybe just a nice thing he was doing for a lady on the property because he knew about winged insects with stingers.
Yes.
And just handling it to be a nice guy.
That is
a nice guy.
Very much what's happening. Because what we're told in this opening scene is that he basically either lives on her property or at the very least rents out a barn that has a kitchen in it. I don't think we fully see his living situation, but he spends a lot of time in her barn making honey.
Processing the honey.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess the bees are making the honey.
Yeah, and starting off on that foot, I was like, oh yeah, this isn't going to be that deep of material, I think, for me to have to try and dig into. So that's nice.
Yeah.
I can get extra baked for this. That's good.
Yeah.
Because I always find it childlike, sort of framing the world into this animal morality kind of a thing without getting into on that surface level. It's not getting into like avatars of culture. It's just like, oh, these are the sweet ones that only make honey, and then these are the bad ones that eat the other ones. And so like it's a complete negation of adult perspective on ecology, which is that predators are necessary, and so like it's already oversimplifying things out the gate.
Wasps are bad, bees are good.
Out the gate, totally.
I'm gonna kill a wasp's nest with a fluorescent light tube, which is just weird. If you've seen the movie, it's weird. It makes no sense. If you have the wasp's nest in a bag, I don't know, toss a bug bomb in there, set it on fire.
Any number of things.
He does this weird thing with a fluorescent tube, and I remember this is like 30 seconds into the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, does he have to buy a new tube every time? Like I'm confused. Does he just have the tubes around? Did he just happen to get a deal on tubes? And he's like, I'm never going to use these legitimately.
There's an overhead light that starts stuttering, and he's like, I'm gonna get that down from my hornets.
Yeah, exactly. So nice little scene that sets up Jason Statham is supposed to be a homely guy renting a barn, making honey with his bees.
Just a simple man living simply.
And this woman keeps inviting him over for dinner.
It's Mrs. Cosby. From
it is.
Yes,
yeah, it is. Which makes the hard transition to her getting all of her money stolen.
Yes, the inciting incident of the film.
I will say, this is one thing I love about the film and what the film does right compared to a lot of films lately. And I talk about this ad nauseum anytime I talk about modern films that do this correctly. It does not spend 45 minutes getting us to the inciting incident.
Right.
It's 4 minutes in, maybe.
Points for timing. The content of the incident itself may be a little questionable, but that's okay. That's all right.
So the content of the incident is, of course, this woman gets scammed. She clicks on a link that she shouldn't, and all of her bank accounts get drained. And all the bank accounts, I should say, she's a trustee for, because as it turns out, she's also the signer for a charity that has millions of dollars in its bank account.
Yeah, $2 million, almost on the dot. Yeah,
and all the people doing this are in some sort of tech billionaire's fever dream workplace.
That's what cracked me up.
In Maryland.
Yes,
which is also like not how these scams work. I don't want to get super into how these scams work, but John Oliver did a episode on what's called pig slaughtering.
Oh, okay.
Which is the present type of this type of scam. The one that we're shown in the movie, the internet scam of like, oh, McAfee needs you to call this number so your computer can be devirused. That's a little bit old. People are wise to that. But sure, movie production timing, what it is. Like, yes, that is so 2002.
Sure.
Whatever. The new one's called pig slaughtering or hog slaughtering. I can't remember which. Like I said, John Oliver did a show on it. And long story short, it's now more about like the long con, you know? He breaks down why these scams happen and the way they do, and how the people in the call centers are usually just as much of a victim as the actual victims, because in the places where they occur, what happens is you are a Nepalese national.
Okay.
You cross the border to India on the promise of a job. Mm-hmm. Well, as it turns out, they steal your passport, so you can't go back home, and you get to work in this call center, and they threaten to hurt you pretty regularly.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's one of those, like, it's really bad, and this movie, first of all, portrays the scammers as everybody's just way into stealing money from old ladies.
Yeah, it's like this like Jordan Belfort guy. Yeah, it's weird.
So all these people who are into stealing money from old ladies steal money from this old lady. And that's the inciting incident.
Yep.
Well, no, the inciting incident we'll get to.
She reacts.
Yeah. And by that, this is where the movie gets heavy for the only time it gets heavy.
Just about, yeah.
Yeah. And that is, this poor woman does take her own life.
She does.
It happens off screen. It's sad.
Yep.
It makes no sense because she's mentioned several times how her daughter helps her out with computer stuff.
Her daughter, the FBI agent?
Yes, her daughter, the FBI agent.
Not to jump ahead, not to put
that's fine
here. But yeah, her daughter, the federal agent, who could probably maybe give her a hand in this situation.
Exactly. Like this woman, the editing and pacing of this is this woman gets a pop-up on her computer. She calls the number. The scammers convince her to enter her password. They drain her bank account. That's like 4 minutes of movie.
Yeah.
And then she kills herself.
Yes.
In the 5th minute.
Yes.
You know, it's just one of those, it is so bonkers. I did actually talk to my friend who works at a bank, and I was like, what happens if this happens? Like, can you get your money back? And I did learn that, like, in this instance, no. So this isn't like credit card fraud where you can do a chargeback. Like when the money physically leaves your bank, they can't just reclaim it. They can't reach into somebody's account and get it back out. Now, that being said, because in the movie this is later in the day and it's a large sum of money, the bank probably is going to let this cook for a bit. So, like, the solution, if you notice this happen in the literal 4-minute progression we're given, is simply to call your bank and be like, hey, I think I messed up. Can you cancel all these transactions? Because if you catch your bank before they process them, boom, it's over, problem solved. Yeah. So my point is make just one phone call, like
maybe.
Just one,
maybe.
You know,
Don't jump for the gun.
Literally, we're gonna move on from that with more respect than I think the movie does.
Yes.
To what I'm going to say is a shot. It sticks in my head. There's one shot in this movie. It's when we see the daughter outside of the house after the tragedy has occurred.
Sure.
She's leaning against a black SUV, and I just remember the composition of this particular shot is quite beautiful. And it is the best shot in the film, and no other shot. It's a transitive shot, and no other shot will be as good, but it's like you had somebody who knew how to set up a camera and you only listened to them one time while making this movie.
No, I was the dick that went to film school, and I'm not giving them that credit, so I applaud you for finding that little kernel in there, because I was not able to pay attention at that point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, very good.
Okay,
I was still reeling from I also just internalizing the message that we would learn many times is that stealing from old people is bad.
Yes. That is
really bad.
It's really bad.
Yes, and there are consequences.
There are, because now that his landlord is dead, the beekeeper is on the case.
Yes, they dragged him out of retirement, much like me, out of podcast retirement, and now he's got scores to settle.
Step one is Googling where are scammers at.
Sure,
because that appears. I cannot remember how he figures out immediately where they are.
I have a note about this, actually. Okay. So he is a retired beekeeper. He still has the contact info for the tech person for the current beekeeper.
Yes.
And so he calls.
Because once again, beekeeper. He's both a beekeeper and there are a group of secret assassins called beekeepers. I do think he's the only beekeeper that's also a beekeeper.
Probably.
Because none of the other ones.
No one else has lost the plot that hard.
Yeah.
Yes. He gets a hold of her and he's like, I need a favor. And so she goes like, oh, this is gonna be tough, Clay. And then with the edit, it's like it intimates that it's literally maybe 15 seconds later, and she's like, got it.
Yeah. And I guess that's what I mean by like he just Googles where are the scammers at.
Yeah, just uses human Google.
Yeah.
With next to no resistance whatsoever from this person who is not supposed to be helping him anymore.
And that is 100% going to be every time Mr. Beekeeper runs into a problem.
Yes.
There is no resistance.
Yes.
Or it's edited in such a way that nothing is particularly difficult for him.
And also, there are sort of, watershed moments in a lot of different genres, and I sort of now view the action genre as like a post-John Wick era now, and so that's even getting down to sort of like the dot matrix style computers that everybody now uses in their little comptroller station things.
You've seen my office,
yes, and I love it.
You're sitting here on my couch next to my electric typewriter, you're saying these words to me. Okay.
No tea, no shade. I'm just saying. I'm not subtweeting you. But now that's sort of an acceptable element of the genre now. And it happened in Gunpowder Milkshake, and now it's in this too, where you've got suicide girls who are operating their telecommunication systems on old school style technology, and it's just cool.
It is cool. I will say it is cool because it's chunky. I think Chunky's in, and I'm a big fan of Chunky.
Absolutely.
But I will say I don't think this movie understands those choices. Why in John Wick people are using typewriters and dot matrix printers. I think somebody just told the set designer that they're cool, and what they could have done, and they don't do this, is they could have showed all the good guys use this chunky old technology, and all the new Gen Z bad guys use new technology.
Right.
Which brings me to my thesis.
Yes.
Because now we are fully we're here.
We're in it.
The beekeeper is going to go beat up some scammers.
Yep.
And one of the first thing he does in the office of the scammers, which is at Crescent Hills Business Park.
Yes.
Which is also bonkers, but he drives to the world's most CGI'd business park. Because they couldn't bother to even, take a photo of the outside of a building.
Or like Garth Marenghi it with like a miniature of a hospital or something.
Totally. It's bad. It's really bad, and it gets worse because the building gets burnt down, and then they have an even worse CGI'd burnt down version of the building.
Absolutely. Yes.
So he goes to the corporate headquarters of the scammers. Not even the corporate headquarters. I guess it's like a satellite office that we learn later.
But still has like pretty stacked security.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy.
Well, so the thing is, I've actually worked in a lot of buildings like that. 100% of those security guys are just paid by the landowner.
Yeah.
Like one of the things is like, oh, you've rented out the third floor, but everybody in the building gets like kind of the guys that throw you out. Like I've worked in places with like literally those same guys, same stupid suits. They're usually not that svelte. The first thing he does in there is something that set in my mind my thesis for what's going on in this movie, which is to say he grabs one of the phone operator's nose rings, which is a move that is so my dad. I waited until I was 27 to get my nose pierced. Which is to say my thesis, this movie is simply John Wick for boomers.
Yes.
But the enemy, it's just Zoomers.
It's just crypto bros. Yeah. Totally.
No, just Zoomers in particular.
Actually, yeah.
And I say that because we're like if you think about all the big people he fights, they're all Zoomer queer coded. They have outlandish outfits. They have outlandish hair.
Yeah.
They're doing it's very like. I'm old now, and I'm afraid of young people because I don't understand them. Also, I need to explain what beekeepers are 3 times because this movie's confusing.
Well, yeah, and to that point, and also kind of alluding to my earlier point about kind of subversion and expectation in a really unsatisfying way, normally in these kind of movies where you've got like old guard and new guard kind of clashing heads or whatever, you've got the opportunity for like the current beekeeper, because like after he destroys the office building or whatever, like it happens that the head of security for this company is Jeremy Irons, who is CIA
Jeremy.
spook. He's just like Herbert Walker Bush coded, or whatever, and so he's like doing a favor for the company owner and keeping track of her shithead crypto bro son or whatever, and so gets a hold of the current CIA, who gets a hold of the current beekeepers, and then sends the current beekeeper after the old one, Jason Statham. So like, you see the text exchange, and it's like, lol, this should be fun, XX emoji.
And that's what I mean. She is very Gen Z coded.
She's, when I was talking to my friend about this, I was like, honestly, as far as like design goes, like she's like she's ripped straight out of like Borderlands or something. Yeah. Like she's got like the big platform boots and the trench coat and the pink hair, and she's got like, did she have like pink tracer rounds?
She has a lot of stuff going on that's very. How do you do, fellow kids?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't remember. So I am colorblind.
Oh, okay.
So I don't remember. I don't remember. Sorry. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's just red is one of the colors that I have a problem with. So I don't remember there being pink tracer rounds, but they very easily could have been. Maybe I might have just seen them as yellow.
Maybe I'm struggling to cling to one thing I liked about this in a sincere way.
I mean, honestly, here's the deal. This character, the current CIA's beekeeper, is introduced and killed in the same scene.
Right, and so like
but she's the most interesting character in the movie up to that point.
And traditionally that would be a point of intersection where they would fight themselves. It's like a comic book, or like if you got like Hulk versus Wolverine or whatever, they fight themselves to a standstill before a third threat comes in and they have to team up and take it out, or whatever.
Or something breaks up the fight.
Right.
A big example of this in this exact genre movie is like, shithead kid crypto bro didn't like that Jeremy Irons' approach was taking so long, so he put a bounty on the open market, so somebody like just crashes a semi-truck through their fight, which breaks them up, and then Jason Statham escapes, and then they can have another confrontation later.
Why didn't you say that when you were in the fucking writer's room? What's the matter with you?
Well, here's the deal.
But
I was trying to get grabbing the nose ring out. That's what I wasn't successful.
That was the hill I was talking about.
Yeah.
No, but like traditionally traditionally that would have been a point where like they fight to themselves to a standstill. They then team up for some reason or whatever, and then like through the morality play of the rest of the film, and like maybe like there's a little bit of back and forth with like staving each other or whatever. But then usually the young person sees the light of the way of the old person, and then takes up that mantle and carries it forward.
Yes.
Right? Like in any other movie, like your fucking Indiana Joneses with Shia LaBeouf's or whatever. Like that's what's gonna happen.
Or weirdly, the accountant.
That's the response to it, and it's sort of deeply unsatisfying on multiple levels, because that is really, other than like the tech person who gives the geocoded location of the call center, like that's the only representation of other beekeeper stuff that you see.
Jeremy Irons, I think, mentions at some point that the other beekeepers have voted to remain neutral after the
which is a total fucking cop-out.
We get hinted at a deep Avengers-style beekeeper universe here, and they all immediately go, nah.
Well, and like again, he's taking this like John Wick role of like explaining to young Josh Hutcherson or whatever, like, you have no fucking idea what you're in for, boy. Yeah. Like kind of a thing. But then like again, I would sort of expect like a counterpoint of that on the beekeeper side, who's like trying to get a hold of Jason Statham and like try and talk him down or whatever. We get none of that.
That is weird, because it's definitely, we're told numerous times that Jeremy Irons' character knows Jason Statham's character. Like, literally, personally, like, hey, I was the head of the CIA. I sent this guy to do some stuff, you know? You're right, he never calls him. There's never like, I don't know, I guess he does call him once, doesn't he?
I think once.
Yeah.
But I mean like I guess like someone within the Beekeeper organization or whatever that had worked with him directly beforehand going like, stop, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, it is quite weird in that regard.
Yeah.
Anyways, we follow around the crypto bro kid for a bit.
Yes.
And we basically learn that he runs a scamming sort of industry thing where he has all these satellite offices that are all just absolute Elon Musk acid dream, flashing lights in your cubicle farm nonsense, where they're all just competing against each other to scam the most old people.
It reminded me of like Jake Paul kind of coded.
A little bit. Once again, like the young people are all trying to steal old people's money, and stealing old people's money is bad.
Yeah.
And that goes on for like 10 minutes.
Right.
Like just a montage of these people are really enthusiastic about stealing old people money. Stealing old people money is bad. And then a weird thing happens, which is more Jason Statham nonsense, which is to say he kills his way through somebody.
Yeah, it's so like the heavy-handed bee metaphor makes its way through several different parties in the movie.
Yes.
Starting with like Jason Statham explaining it to you directly or whatever, and then by proxy through like the Jeremy Irons explaining it, and then also the FBI people discovering it as they go along.
Yes.
And so then as the FBI people are digging into it more, this like queen killer thread starts happening or whatever, because of just like learning more about bees by proxy of learning about this shadowy assassin organization that's been around since the founding of America or whatever.
Yes.
But she keeps preoccupying herself by learning more about actual bees, which is good and totally pertinent to what's going on.
Which is really interesting, because they do bring up the concept of the queen killer early, like really early. The FBI character figures it out in that we as the audience are told something's been figured out, but we have not actually been given the puzzle. Like, we've literally got a person running into the room like, the queen killer, and it's like, we haven't met anybody in this movie who's the metaphor for the queen yet.
This is apropos of nothing.
Yeah, this is like your events are out of order.
Yeah.
And then some stuff happens that I don't think is worth mentioning. Basically, he kills another office full of scammer people.
Well, like, there's an interim period where, like, after the complex is burnt to the ground and whatever high explosives were also contained in the closets and things also explode, then there's a retaliation where the Jordan Belfort Goober goes with a truck full of goons and goes and shoots all the beehives and knocks over all the honey.
Yes.
And so now Jason Statham has really got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And so he, chops the dude's fingers off and kills all the dude's goons.
Yes.
And then suspends him from a bridge after that so he can be found by the police.
I think he launches him into the water.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, basically he chops his fingers off and lets him go, and then immediately chases him down because he knows he's going to call the main crypto bro.
Right.
Which is really the confusing part, because there are like 3 major crypto bros in this movie. 2 of the 3 of them die in just, we need some action montages. And that's all that's really worth saying on them.
Yeah. I initially was like, God, they're stretching out this first guy a little bit. I have a note that says, I don't want to watch Jordan Belfort suffer. I want to watch him die. Just be done with it. But as we kept introducing more crypto bros, I have a note that says, this guy really hates NFTs.
Yes, it is so weird.
It just got grumpier and grumpier and grumpier as it went along, as it was plodding along.
So are we ready for the Queen reveal?
Yes.
So the Queen reveal is we learn that the main crypto bro's mom is the President of the United States, because this is one of those movies.
Yes.
Which I had spoiled for myself by pausing the movie at one point to figure out if there was like more weed gummies or something I could do to get through this, and it said like so and so Madam President, and I was like, that's a weird thing to be credited as for being like CEO of Crypto Bros Inc., because that's what I like assumed that she was or whatever. And no, as it turns out, it's like actual OG US president, which brings me to my second thesis on how this movie is about how the young are screwing the olds. I think this entire plot, and this is my like perpetually online American politics poisoned brain, this is all a commentary on Hunter Biden.
Oh, interesting.
100%, like, this is all just a weird commentary on Hunter Biden, in that, like, none of it makes sense, it's convoluted as hell, and why are we even here? The Hunter Biden saga is a person who, like any of us, has made questionable decisions, but crucially had access to opportunities and resources that made those questionable decisions very public and have ramifications for others.
Indeed.
It's the same thing going on. Crypto Bro is son of the president and is supposedly committing crimes to, I guess, finance ads in Iowa for her re-election campaign.
Right,
like,
yes.
Which is the line that a lot of, like, people have been trying to draw in the Hunter Biden thing. Like, oh, he's scamming all these people for money so that way he can help Joe Biden get elected. There's no evidence of that. There's never been evidence of that. But that's what it, like, immediately when they said that's what was going on, like, all the old people scamming is to help mommy get reelected because I guess she didn't hug him enough as a kid or whatever. I was like, this just feels like Ben Shapiro wrote something about Hunter Biden a little bit.
Yeah, I think you could either see it that way or almost like an out of touch Bernie bro.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, where like rich people bad. I get that. Yep. Like whatever.
Jeremy Irons convinces Crypto Bro to call mommy because being physically near mom means we get Secret Service detail.
And crazy South African guys.
Well, see, this is once again back to this movie is just old people afraid that the new kids are dressing weird. Because...
What are you talking about, bro?
Because the mercenaries that I guess Jeremy Irons hires are just like... He just opened up the H&M catalog and was like, I want this guy holding a gun outside the room 24/7.
And there's also a few dudes that look like they're from Hulkamania, which is also very...
Yes. Yeah, but... So basically, this all builds to and we're flying forward in the movie because unless there's something that you think that's really worth talking about.
No, because like once you kind of get through, I think it's about like the hour point, right? Hour mark. I have a note that basically says that it basically just turns into like a bog standard action movie after this, and whatever points of metaphor about tending the hive or whatever have already been made 30 times at this point.
Yeah,
they're happening ad nauseum and will continue to happen. So like there's no further points for me to write down other than like the retrospective that I had after the fact.
So we are in Act 3. By now we know that Jason Statham is a queen killer.
Yes,
and that's because I guess if a certain number of drone bees don't think that the queen is productive, then they kill her. It's a real thing that happens in bee colonies. Crucially, the beekeeper doesn't do it. So once again, you mixed your metaphors, movie. Good job.
Are you the bee or the keeper, sir?
Yeah, exactly. Are you the bee or are you the keeper? Like, hey, you paying attention?
You gotta.
Yeah. Anyways, so it's all headed up for a big final climactic battle at a winery / lighthouse somewhere in Martha's Vineyard. You know, we have two types of security in this place. Number one, bog standard Secret Service cops. Jason Statham is not allowed to kill them because this is a movie.
They are spared.
Written by old people.
Yeah, they're just doing their job.
Exactly. But then, because we can't not have violence in the third act, we have the most garishly dressed mercenary battalion.
God love them.
Yep. And they know how to kill a beekeeper. They've done it before, but it cost them a leg.
It's true.
Probably because they threw it at him and it confused him or something. I can't decide applaud them or condemn them for not making that joke. Because I just feel like if your pro beekeeper killer is very visibly missing a leg, you gotta mention it more than you don't know what I've been through.
Yeah, you should make that front and center and then make the leg a gun.
I mean, with how else that scene works out.
Okay, maybe not.
Yeah.
Because then he gets it, and then that's a problem.
So anyways, Jason Statham gets past the Secret Service blockade by hiding under a truck.
Indeed.
Literally, somehow waits for them to look under the truck, and then crawls under it. And that's good job, guys.
Yep, knocks a guy out and shoves him beneath the truck and then takes his place.
Yeah. So, long story short, he breaks into the Martha's Vineyard, probably.
Yeah, Martha's place. Yeah.
Where some stuff happens. Some really bad choreography happens, really. Or maybe it's bad editing.
Underutilization of a mirror room. Or at least not proper utilization of a mirror room.
Okay.
With the fight with the big, scary South African
guy. That's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about specifically. Because it's okay, somebody watched John Wick, and in the script, I just know that this is what it says: a John Wick style fight scene. Margaret, figure this out for me, period. And frankly, Margaret, whoever you are, wherever you are, you did your best and they did not pay you enough or give you enough resources to do it, because I see what you tried to do.
The problem with mirror room shots is that you basically need to have movable walls to be able to reposition everything. You need they are nearly 110% of the time shot in a studio space where you can completely reorganize everything and shoot from above and wherever you need to shoot to get the proper angles to make it look like an infinity and actually make it look like as disorienting as it's supposed to look. But it was just a hallway with some mirrors in it that got smashed up. It could have been stained glass. It could have been anything that could have shattered and then given the dude a knife, which is the main point of having glass in the room. So that's it.
So Jason Statham beats up this guy in a hallway where a lot of glass breaks for confusing reasons.
Yes.
I can't even remember how the quote-unquote main mercenary guy dies, if only because he's introduced so late in the movie and should have been that first beekeeper. Frankly, if that's the way this fight was gonna go, it should have been here is recurring enemy. You guys got broken up by that semi-truck ramming through the gas station, but she's back now, in the big bad's lair for the fight. So anyways, South African guy without a leg.
He gets shot in the face at a certain point and then keeps going.
Yes, exactly. That's why it's
brutal and cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's on the way to the study in Madam President's place in Martha's Vineyard, where Josh Hutcherson has been doing lines of blow.
But before that,
revealing secrets and killing FBI people.
Yes, I forgot that. That's a weird thing. There's a whole bunch of gunshots coming from the room where the president is. We best not investigate that.
Just a family affair.
Yeah, but we are contractually obligated to get Jeremy Irons in one more scene. So
so we'll have Jeremy we'll have Jeremy get his hand broken by Jason Statham and thrown to the wayside like a piece of tissue paper
whilst explaining the concept of the Queen Killer for the fourth time.
Yes. In case you still haven't really fully internalized this, we're gonna beat you over the head with it one more fucking time.
Literally, though, I think that conversation nearly sums up most of the plot of the movie, which is scamming old people bad.
Yep.
There's a certain type of bee that will kill the queen if the queen's unproductive. Mm-hmm. Jason Statham is a beekeeper. Those are the three pillars of this movie.
Yep. And then we're gonna vaguely allude to the hive.
Yes.
Whatever that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's America.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah. So we get into the office, and then the same conversation that just happened outside the office happens again.
Yes.
Yeah. Only now with the president there, and she's kind of like really like in the room in the same way. There's also a desk in the room. It's not a well acted scene.
She does have one of the best pull quotes from the movie.
Really?
I think in an earlier scene in Martha's Vineyard or whatever, where she's talking to her shithead son. And she just sort of takes his face in both hands and just says like, "God, you're such a good-looking boy." And he's like, "What the fuck?" He's like, and she goes, "It's just a shame that God doesn't give with both hands." And I was like, "Oh, that's cold. I love that. That's fantastic. That's the best way I've ever heard of a mom calling her son stupid."
Oh man.
So I liked that. That was shady. That was nice. But other than that, yeah, it's not awesome.
Yep. So Jason Statham shoots Crypto Bro on the head, jumps out a window.
Oh, because Crypto Bro is holding Madam President, his mom, hostage with a gun.
Yes, because I guess he's decided not to be the queen killer after all, too.
I guess, yeah. I guess maybe he found out that he was the problem after all, and not the mom. But he wasn't privy to the conversation beforehand. And this is like a weird like Reefer Madness like morality play moment or whatever. Mm-hmm. She's like, "I'll just have to turn you into the proper authorities and suffer the consequences."
Yes, it's so
because crime doesn't pay.
Yes, the other like moral of the story. It's such a weird. It's really weirdly anticlimactic because they kind of blew their shot at it with the South African fight and then the Jeremy Irons like discussion. Like the same conversation just happens 3 times in a row at the end. Yeah. Once Jason Statham, Jeremy Irons, Madam President and her son, Madam President, her son, and Jason Statham all rehash the conversation we've all been having for the last 20 minutes of this movie. Mm-hmm. Once again, stealing money bad.
Yep.
Beekeeper good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bees.
So then through a series of what I'm going to call editing, which is generous, he jumps out of a window and acquires a scuba suit and disappears.
Yep.
And credits roll. And it's the most.
And they have the Point Break moment where FBI agent has him in her sights. And could take him out and then just pulls it away and then gives him the nod or whatever.
I'm realizing in this now that we are here at the end of the movie. There's an entire plot with this FBI agent that we've sort of barely touched on in our conversation about it. But we've touched on it with the same amount of care and respect as the movie itself did, which is to say, there's definitely some scenes in there, but there simply isn't enough time.
It's really weird. I don't love the way that she's portrayed in the film.
No, I think it's a waste of character, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, like, I mean, like, and this is probably maybe rich coming out of my mouth, but I don't know. We had a lot of talk about it when I was in film school or whatever, but like, it's not actually like great representation if you just write a character like you would a man and then cast a woman in the role, which is sort of the vibe that I got as far as like a lot of the little sort of like traditional one-liner quip things like she had with her partner or whatever. It's like this is just like written like just like 2 dudes or whatever, and I didn't love that. I guess
I see what you're saying, and I would say my challenge on that is to some degree, like, getting more diversity in movies does just amount to even artificially adding it. I'm not saying that's great. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but it is way better than the 2 FBI agents being Joe Pesci and like any other white guy.
Yes.
You know, like,
gotcha.
you know.
Yeah.
So my point is I did what I found, in fact, more upsetting was that all the law enforcement people in the movie were diverse. Which, if anything, for the way the movie is trying to set up statements as clumsily as it does about society, it would have been more powerful if all law enforcement was the white guy status quo, and then the rest of our cast was a little bit more diverse in one way or another.
Or your perspective FBI character can still be a black woman, but it still is surrounded by the reality of the fact that it's dominated by white men.
Yeah, totally. But it is definitely like we need some diverse people. Well, we have a lot of FBI agents in this movie, so that's where our diversity can be.
Yeah.
Because the president, we already made her a woman. She can't be a woman of color.
How many boxes do we need to check here?
It would be simply too hard. and it's not like we don't have Emmy Raver Lampman around, which I will say I feel like she was underutilized. She was in Hamilton. We know she can act. Jason Statham, you're better than that too. I don't know if they could simply only get you for one take of everything, but it really did feel like both him and Jeremy Irons did not have time to sit down at the desk and be the character. I'm thinking of specifically that first scene Jeremy Irons is in, where it's do you want another run at that? Because it just feels like you were just like
that was a good warm up.
Yeah. Like you were talking your lines to yourself, and now we're gonna start rolling.
Cool.
But I guess we accidentally had the camera on, and there just simply is no time.
I've also got in my brain of what Jeremy Irons can look like when he's at 10, which is the Dungeons and Dragons movie, where he's just screaming the word power over and over again, and in a very evil wizard way. So I know that the man can cook. So it's hard seeing him at that level of intensity, and it's also hard because he's 90 fucking years old and should probably just quit doing movies. But it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. It's up to them. It's all good.
So there we are. The credits have rolled.
Yes.
What are our thoughts?
When you kind of dig slightly deeper into sort of the greater mythos that this is kind of tapping into, it's this is maybe some points for concern. At least into the deeper overall politics of this being sort of specifically an American Christian fantasy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I've been nipping at the edges of, because it very much feels like this is the lens through which I see the world, but Jason Statham is here to de-mohawk your women and de-nose ring your men and make them all good little boys and girls again, back when America was simple and people didn't get to express themselves.
Yeah, he's now squarely entering what I call the shoe polish beard era of his filmography. And there's a time-honored tradition of this. You've watched many James Bond movies, especially those with Roger Moore, where there's a lot of heavy lifting done to prop up this 55-year-old man and make him seem super, super cool and keeping up with the 22-year-old that he's running around with and fucking the whole time. And so Jason Statham, that now there was not a sexy angle to this movie, which I was incredibly grateful for.
That I will say, that doesn't happen a lot in Jason Statham movies. Post Crank.
Yeah.
He's not
really sexy guy.
Yeah, and I think that's because
he's a married man with children.
Oh, maybe.
I don't know.
I just think he likes he only plays the same character.
Yeah.
And I think he likes playing that character. And that character is far too busy punching people to think about whether or not he's attractive or if somebody else in the room is attractive.
Well, and in the makeup of the character, it is sort of this amalgamation of Joe Q action hero guy, right?
Well, like you said, it's a fantasy.
Right.
It's very much specifically somebody's fantasy.
Yeah, and how many fucking goddamn douchebags would give to have a hint of a British accent that someone can pick up on, but you've been stateside so long that you're good an American now. Come the fuck on. They even hang a lantern on it. I think at a certain point, is that a hint of the British Isles I hear in there? It's no, I just can't hack an American accent. But he's doing basically American act. It's it's not an American accent. It's how American action hero guy talks. Now Jason Statham is in his 50s, and that's where this train is headed.
Yeah, and the whole movie did very much just feel like that.
Yeah.
It also did very much feel and then I saved the world with my gun.
Right, and no matter what example you specifically pull from, whether it's Braveheart or Falling Down or any number of movies where a good man, a moral center, has had enough and monopolizes violence for a brief period of time to take out the trash.
Yes.
Or whatever. If without the impetus of it being terrorists taking over your office building during the Christmas party or whatever. Like there has to be very clear lines of morality set from the beginning, whether that's like bad guys doing puppy kicking and then having to get revenge for that or whatever. Like there's a societal wrong that is being righted by this person monopolizing violence for a brief period of time and subverting authority that is traditionally recognized by everybody on a societal level, be it like law enforcement or whatever.
And this is a very common thing, I think, in modern filmmaking. You're talking about these traditional authority figures, but on top of that, movies are bending over backwards right now for the protagonist to also be the quote-unquote good guy.
Yeah.
Like, the bad guy has to kick a puppy because we can no longer have a bad guy protagonist. Or at least I can't really think of a movie recently that's been very popular that has had a, quote, bad guy protagonist.
Right.
You just wouldn't have them. There isn't a, like, Ocean's 11 even. We would need a moral failing on the part of Andy Garcia to kick the plot off. Like, it's not enough that we're just bad guys stealing from another bad guy. He has to have also demolished a children's hospital to build a new casino.
Right, exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
And that movie does this.
Old ladies.
Yeah, and that movie does this really hard in the stealing a whole bunch of money from old ladies. We can't kill any cops, even though
a bunch of bees.
What?
And killing a bunch of bees.
Oh, the bees.
The bees got shot.
The bees did get shot.
Sorry, I sorry.
No, it's fine. But my point is like they had to bring in a whole bunch of like garishly dressed mercenaries because they're like in the big fight scene, the beekeeper needs to kill some people and they can't be any of the like president's security because that would be wrong.
Right. Yes.
And we want a big gunfight.
Yeah.
So we need garishly dressed weirdos.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally.
And a lot of modern movies are doing that, and I don't particularly like it, but
yeah, it's honestly I had a really deep discussion about this on my old podcast about Braveheart, and I don't know if you're familiar with the myth of Cincinnatus.
I am not.
So he was a real man. He was a Roman statesman who has a deeply mythologized legacy at this point, but is pointed to sort of as like an example of virtuousness in government. In that, like, and you'll be able to apply this template to just about a lot of fucking movies here here in a minute. So you've got
I'm learning the hero's journey, but for movies.
Sort of, yes. So like sort of like like a sagely old wizard, calling you to action or whatever. Like so you've got a simple man who is living a simple life. Tilling the land. It's usually an agrarian situation. I'm going to make the direct analog to William Wallace wanting to just want to get married and raise my crops. You know, like that's the whole line. And then these goddamn English puppy kickers come in and ruin the whole bit.
Yeah.
He would just be a simple man. Farming simply, if it were not for these goddamn invaders and their merciless and hedonistic ways. And so, at a certain point, great threat. There's a tribe that had a deal with Rome, and they've reneged on that, and they're now invading. The effete leadership at the time has allowed a lot of the shit to go to shit, and so he then is approached by the governing body and offered a dictatorship on his little Cabbage Patch farm, and he reluctantly agrees. And so for 16 days he holds the title of dictator, summons every man of fighting age to a muster, and then fends off the enemy, and then humbly returns the title, and then goes back to his farm once the deed is done. So you can apply this to, like, I just want to be a simple NYPD beat cop, then go back to my simple NYPD beat, and once I deal with these terrorists, all will be back to normal, and I can just be back to being a simple family man once again. I can get back to being the simple, appreciated, moral archetype that is a pillar of any Western community. And so you can plaster this onto everything of, like, God, they're just when I thought I could get out, they dragged me back in, and so the reluctant hero has to monopolize violence for a period of time where he gets to sort of kill everybody with carte blanche, and then everything's good. and then he goes back to the farm, and then that's it.
I think you weirdly answered why I personally like spy movies, because there's none of that. Because this is just the character's job. The character's job is to be a spy. Nobody's watching Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy thinking these people are going back to normal after this is done.
They're just plumbers for information.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that does it for the Beekeeper.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think we've spent more words on the Beekeeper than it deserved. I feel bad having made you watch it after I very publicly put a video on the internet where I gave it a 3 out of 10 on my generalized ranking scale, which is a void. So, you know.
A void.
But we are here because what a disaster.
Yeah, truly.
Okay. I've been WildWeiler. He's been Man Entrenched. Do you have anything to plug?
No, this is my first appearance as Man Entrenched.
Okay.
So I'm delighted. Yeah,
Cool.
Thank you for christening my pseudonym.
Well, thank you everybody for listening and have a wonderful day.
Bye, take care.
Bye.